Okay.
Okay, now you can start when you want. Thank you.
Now I can. Okay, starting again. So now hopefully also the people online can hear me and see me, if not shout or something. Yeah, welcome again. So to introduce myself briefly, it's not working. Not too fast. Okay. So I'm Angerhausen. I'm an astrophysicist by training. I work at ETH in Zurich as a project scientist for the live space mission, and I give a talk about this too, I think, this afternoon. So this will be about, if you're interested in exoplanet characterization, habitability, astrobiology, interferometry, so all that kind of stuff we will be talking about. I spent some time in the US. I'm also going to talk about this a bit later, but in this workshop, I'm mostly focusing on the work that I'm doing in this nonprofit called Explainables. So with Explainables, we started about 6 years ago and started with science communication workshops, like teaching other students, other grad students, postdoc, how to communicate with the public. But we soon realized that they had other needs, still communication needs, but more in, talking to funding agency, talking to colleagues, talking to maybe, colleagues from different fields. So we developed this series of professional development workshops that I also show here, how to brand yourself in academia, how to write proposals, how to communicate in projects and stuff like this. And I'm just giving you a bit of a best of this today. It's going to be very interactive. As for myself, so over my career, I see myself as a bit of a Swiss Army knife in this field of astrobiology. So I'm not good at any of it, but because I know a little bit of everything, I'm still surviving in academia. And a lot of this has to do because I kind of learned how to communicate or how to explain to a chemist how biology works, or to an astrophysicist why we need to talk to geologists. So this is, essentially where I'm coming from. Just briefly, so I'm originally from the Cologne area. This is where I know Manu from. So we studied together, got our undergrad degrees in Cologne. Then I went to Pasadena, to JPL for a bit. Then I finished my PhD in Stuttgart, Germany. Then I had my first postdoc in Hamburg. Then I had another postdoc at the New York Center for Astrobiology. Then I was at NASA in Washington. Then I got a fellowship in Bern, and now I'm in Zurich. So very crazy career. So, and a lot of the stuff that I'm presenting here, I also learned in this time. So especially, when it comes to, storytelling and personal branding in the US, those of you who've seen talks from US colleagues know there's some bit of a different culture in this. So I learned on both sides, the good and the bad. I know how the funding agencies maybe work slightly different on both sides of the Atlantic. So, so a lot of the stuff that I learned sometimes the hard way over the past 10 years in this weird career that I'm presenting in these workshops. And there's some things apparently I did right, so I still survived in academia. But there's probably also some things I didn't do right because I still don't have a permanent position and probably will never get. And I'm giving these workshops, so that's where I'm coming from. Okay, let's get started. So when I give these workshops, I always compare them with your first day in the gym, right? So if you go to the gym for 1 hour, you won't come up like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? But I explain you, and in these workshops, we explain you a couple of exercises that you can use, couple of concepts, couple of frameworks that you can use to become a better communicator, to get a better personal brand, to write better proposals. But you have to repeat it, right? This is the first thing. You have to repeat and stick to it. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone. So a couple of these exercises might be a bit weird for you, but stick with me. This is similar to the gym, or when you work out, you have to sweat a bit, you have to use a muscle that you haven't used before to just get better. And so stick with me. Okay, let's just get started. So one of the first very basic communication concepts that we always teach at our workshops is to be in this 2x2 matrix of but, and, no, yes. Try to be in this yes and corner in the top. And that sounds super counterintuitive for many scientists. I remember when I heard this in the first workshop, I was like, what the hell? I mean, I have to say no and I have to say but. And then eventually I even got the facilitator to saying no, and I said, see, this is a problem. But it's a really powerful tool in many circumstances. So always try to be in this mindset, right? It doesn't mean that you agree with anyone. It doesn't mean that you agree with what the person said, but it shows that you understand where the person is coming from, and then you can add whatever else. It even works for these typical conference. I have more of a comment than a question from the last row. Even in these cases, you can do it. Yes, I understand your concern, and here is how we did it, right? So it's really a powerful concept, and you see it used by people who communicate well. And I'm giving you a quick test just to show you how different it is. So we organize a party, right? Tonight we have a big party, and we organize it, right? And now we go through the rows, and everyone contributes to our party planning. But start your sentence with yes, but. Right? Yes, but we need a DJ. Yes, but we need champagne. Just yes, but we need a pool. Right? Just add whatever you want to see at the party, but start your sentence with yes, but. Okay, so let's have a party. Yes, but.
Yes, but have good music.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but DJ is it.
Yes, but what do we need? Yes, but.
Yes, but good food.
Yes, but good food.
Yes, but we need ice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but we need please.
Yes, but we need coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but big shop steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but day.
Yes, but some games.
Mhm.
We need a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but we need to dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I need more.
Yes, but I guess I think. Thank you.
And last one.
Yes, it will start day.
Yes. So who's excited about this party? No one, right? So let's start it again. Let's start this time start your sentence with yes and. You can say the same thing. Don't even have to think about something new, but now say yes and. So let's have a party again.
Yes, and have some music as well.
Yes, and the other DJs as well. It's great music.
Yes, and have some food.
Yes, and some more ice.
And that's what I already.
Yes, and coffee.
Yes, I'm big shop.
Yes, I know.
Yes, and some games.
Yes, and I can drink some wine.
Yes, I'm dance. Yes, and I want to be.
Yes, yes,
So who's excited about this party? A bit more, right? So I mean, it's a constructed example, but you feel how it immediately gets a different attitude, different mood, more a positive feedback loop, so to say. So this is really one example where this yes and works. Another, and this is one of the main lessons that we always teach at our Explainables workshops, is to have what we call a game plan. So whatever communication situation you go in, from your weekly meeting with your advisor to driving to a big conference or writing a proposal, always be aware, or always make sure that you have what we call a game plan. And what I mean by game plan is, first of all, know your goals. Try to have a very, very clear goal for whatever situation you go in. And one thing that I usually focus on is try to make it measurable. Try to find some sort of metric that shows you if you reach that goal or not. So let's say you go to a conference and your goal is people should be excited about my research. How do you measure that? Do you take out your excitometer and measure the audience, right? I mean, it's at least you have a goal at the conference. You not just go to the conference, yeah, let's see what's happened. That's the first, right? But if your goal is, I want 3 more people to cite my paper, I want 10 more followers on Twitter, I want 5 people forking my code on GitHub, this is more measurable, right? And this, in a sense, is the same, right? If people like your work, if people are excited about the work, they download your data. But by having these more clear goals, it makes it much more easier for you to do your message. But if your goal is my science, that people think you're excited, what is your message? Hey, my science is excited. But if you want people to download your code, you can have this QR code leading to your GitHub. If you want people to cite your work, you can tell them in which circumstances it might be a useful citation. So this is really an important part. You all know these Zoom calls that go for an hour and you don't know why, right? I see a lot of people nodding, right? You know what? You know why? Because the person who organized that 1 hour Zoom call didn't have clear goals. If you organize a meeting, if you organize a Zoom call, if you have a list of clear goals, I want this action item assigned, I want this problem to be solved, I want someone giving me feedback on X. If you have checked all these goals, then you can stop your Zoom call after 20 minutes. So usually these cases are where people don't have clear goals. So this is maybe the most important lesson. You have a goal. Then think about your audience. Right? So different audiences, even if you have the same goal, if you have a different audience, you have to have a different message. So really think about who are you talking to? You know, what is my goal? What do I want this audience to do? And for a different audience, there might be different ways of saying this. I'm going to exercise it in the next exercise. And then once you have these two, some sort of call to action, something that you want your audience to do, and you understand, you know, how your audience tick, then you can design the message around it. So this is what we mean by our game plan. And let's improvise that. So for this, it's going to be an activity. So we better get up and find a partner. So we are odd number, right? So 2 people together. So get up. This is going to be an exercise. So we will be doing things. So I give you 2 minutes. So you have a 2-minute slot, and so maybe try to talk to someone that you might not know yet. So so in this first round, one of you is themselves, and the other person is an expert from your field. So that person knows all the literature, every citation, knows exactly where the field is going. And it's someone in the review panel. So they, at the moment, can decide if you get money for your research or not. So your job is to tell that expert from your field to give more money for your research. Okay? So you get 2 minutes. So you have this situation where you're in an elevator with a review panel, or with someone from your review panel. You get 2 minutes to convince the other person that you should get money from your science. Okay? 2 minutes. Let's get started.
So,
No. La community, that's what they want. One more minute to convince the expert. Ten seconds. Okay. That was 2 minutes. Time is up. The expert has to go back in the panel. So which of our experts is funding the research that we just heard about? You were convinced. What did Manu do right? How did he convince you?
He convinced me with 2 keywords, life in the universe and machine learning.
Life in the universe, right. Using buzzwords. That's a good one. Anyone else? So make sure you give him your IBAN. Then he can Specifics, yeah. Talking about technology. Okay, so now we switch sides. So whoever was themselves is now impersonating, and who was the expert is now themselves. So now we have the same goal, right? We need more money for science, but this time your audience is a non-expert rich donor, right? So you are at the reception at your institution, and there's this super rich person in front of you in the line at the buffet, and you get the long line. You get 2 minutes to convince that person to get more money for it. Right? You see, it's the same goal, but it's a different audience. And that person doesn't care about papers, doesn't care about being co-author, doesn't care about they care about other things than maybe the expert we just talked about. So now, same goal, different audience. Now try to convince our Brazilianaire to give more money. Again, 2 minutes.
The problem is so many modules not many information. Yes, but people like me using the wrong things. All of us work together on the same goals and understand this program is different things.
Yes.
30 seconds with our millionaire, billionaire. Okay, that was 2 minutes. So our billionaire, of course, is super busy going back to being CEO of Twitter and shooting rockets in space. So which of our billionaires is writing a check? Who got convinced? Okay, what did you write?
His ideas were nice and he encouraged me because I would get contribution and prestige.
So instead of co-authorships and nice code, you get prestige out of this. So more emotional probably, right? So you were more technically with the expert, now you're more on an emotional level with the billionaire. Someone else? Who else is opening their wallet, who's writing a check? Okay.
So you want the alien?
Yeah, aliens always. Yeah, it's a good one. If you want to hear about aliens, come to my talk this afternoon. I literally have a slide or two about how to detect aliens. I'm kidding you. Yes, so this is a bit of the take-home message here, and by the way, as we said, give them your bank connection for the money for your research. So this is an example for what I talked about with this game plan. But you could have the same goal, but as soon as it gets a different audience, you need to have a different story. And this is why this one-size-fits-all elevator pitch doesn't work, because you're always in the elevator with a different person, with a different knowledge, with different motives. So really try to tailor your presentations, all your communication products to the right audience. But I always make a different talk for every audience. Like there's rarely a case where I have exactly the 50 same slides or something. Usually I make a different poster for, if I go to an astrology conference, I have a different poster than when I go to a more astrophysics conference. So it really depends on the audience. Okay, then let's talk a bit about branding. So this is the next big part. So this might be a bit, it might sound a bit weird to people, especially in Europe. They think it's about overselling yourself or about, pretending that you do more amazing things that they actually are. But it's for us, it's more about finding your niche in academia. Right? So we all know that usually you want to have this, you want to become the expert for something, you want to become the world expert for machine learning in astrobiology, or for making planning surveys for big telescopes, or to observe AGNs in X-rays. So there's always this kind of brand that you have, right? That people recognize you in the community for, and this is what we mean by branding. And so the benefits of this personal brand in academia, first of all, it enhances your recognition as a subject matter expert. Right? If you work on this brand that you are the expert for X-rays observation of AGN, then people come to you to review proposals about these observations. Right? So you become a reviewer for these papers. It shapes your reputation and credibility. So if you publish about this, if you are the world leading expert for that, people trust you that you write decent papers about X-ray observations of AGN or whatever. It advances your career, so especially for the younger folks, if you write your first or second fellowship application, if you have this brand, if you have this niche defined for you, it advances your career. And it also really helps with your self-confidence. But if you're not really sure what your brand is, what your product is, what is that you contribute to your community. So this also helps with counteracting imposter syndrome and all this mental health things that we might have to deal with in academia. So these are a couple of reasons to do this branding. What oftentimes is also a bit of a misunderstanding. So people think branding is the same as marketing. And those are two different things. So for us, branding is this process of finding out what your product is, right? So branding is what, if Apple sells an iPhone, it's a telephone with a camera, and then marketing is how to get it to the customer, right? So branding is defining your product. So I have a Subaru, which is a car, but for more, outdoorsy people. And marketing is then getting this brand message to your audience. So, having YouTube ads, or, playing the videos on Instagram, or maybe put big billboards in the city. So this is what marketing is. But branding is defining what is this product. And marketing then is bringing this product to your audience. And in academia, this means branding would be, okay, so I'm now the Swiss Army knife in astrobiology, that's my brand. And marketing would be to have a poster at a conference, or to write a professional newsletter, or to have a personal homepage, or to have a GitHub, or to have a LinkedIn. Those are all the ways you make marketing for your brand, right? A couple of definitions. So personal branding is the process by which you differentiate yourself and stand out from a crowd by identifying and articulating your unique value proposition, and then leveraging it with a consistent message. Okay. One definition, the other one, the public expression and projection of an individual's identity, personality, values, skills, and abilities. Yeah, but my favorite one, not the guy, but the quote is, personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. And this is really where it is about, to look at how you see yourself, so, and how others see me, right? So, you might think you are the expert for machine learning astrobiology, but do really the others see you like this? And how is this picture that you have of yourself? Is it the same as the pictures that others have of you? And what are the steps you can take to make them more aligned, to make them overlap? This is where this branding and marketing goes to. And then your brand message, has to be consistent, right? You can't be the astrobiologist here and the galaxy expert there, and then you're also an expert in social science. It has to be consistent brand. It has to be visible. So if you're just in your closet or in your basement doing great experiments, but you don't show it to your community, then it's not a good brand, because it has to be visible. And usually it should be original, right? If you're the sixth person writing a new weighted transfer code, might not be the most original thing, but also try to have some sort of an original brand. And these are all the questions you go to. And in these branding workshops with Explainables, we take a long time. There's a bunch of questions you can ask yourself. There's also like with some funny games, like if you were a car, what would be your brand? If you were a drink, or if you were a plant, if you were an animal, what would you be? So this is a bit to get your brand identity going. So these are the exercises we do. And similar along the same line, this whole branding process also is a bit about distilling, right? So you have a 500-page PhD thesis, and you want to reduce that to a 30-second summary, right? This is also what defines your brand. What is this product that you that you bring out to your community, and this also helps with distilling. But no one has time to read your whole PhD thesis, probably not even your advisor, but I didn't say that, right? So really, it's your job to distill that message, right? To not, to not have people listening to you for 5 minutes to get your point, but have a, distilled 30-second version for other people. And this is where this distilling process comes into play. And this is important also for presentations, right? So in a publication, you're used to do all these information. You start with in 1995, Mayor and Pelosi found the first exoplanet, and the first rendered in 2002, blah, 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 blah. And eventually you come to the details of your method, and then right at the end, finally there are the results and conclusions. But if you start a presentation like this, you lose people already here, right? Because everyone knew about the introduction. So in the presentation, you have to start with the bottom line. The people need to know in the first 10 seconds of your talk what your talk is about and why they should pay attention to you for the next 10, 15, 35 minutes, right? So this is why in presentations, you really need to front. This might be counterintuitive to many too, because this is how we write publications, but in presentations, it's really the other way around. And this is where, again, this distilling gets important, to reduce your message, to give this, don't bury the lead. That's what people in journalism say, to really get this take-home message out, if possible, right in the beginning. And part of this is also the curse of knowledge. And this goes also into this different audiences, right? So sometimes, we use all this lingo, all this RV is very velocity and DNA, all these different communities have different lingo. So make sure that your audience you're talking to knows and speaks the same lingo, the same language. I brought you an example. It's a 90-minute football game distilled into, I shouldn't have said it's a 90-minute of something distilled into 5 or 3 sentences. In extra time of Clásico Madrid, CR7 took the stand to shoot a last free kick to equalize, but Ter Stegen kept him out with a superb save to end the game. Who has no idea what's going on here? Yeah, in Barcelona, probably. but who can explain what's going on here? He asked like this. Who wants to explain what's even going on? What kind is it? Sport, I guess, right? What kind of sport? Football. What's CR7? Who's Cristiano Ronaldo? There. And what's going on here? Is it important, or what is El Clásico?
The game against Barcelona.
And that's just a random game, or one of the most important games, right? CR7, this Cristiano Ronaldo dude apparently is a big star. It's very close to the end. It's very emotional. So this is a perfect distilling for a football magazine, right? If you write for a football magazine, your audience reads this, they know exactly CR7 is this and that. But if you write a summary, a distillation of the football match for someone who has no idea about football, they probably won't even recognize that it's football, because it's all these coded language, right? All these El Clásico, for someone who doesn't know football, they have no idea what El Clásico is. But someone who knows football, they get all these pictures, right? So this is the example for broader audience. The game was almost over, and the home team was losing to his most hated rival. The beloved captain of the home team, playing in his last season, made a last-ditch effort to win. The game ended, and the home team went down to bitter defeat. So this is how you would describe this to someone who has no clue about football, right? So you see, it's distillation of what happened in the game, but in a completely different way because it's a different audience, right? So be aware that, a Clásico in CR7 might be common language in your community or your group, but it might not necessarily be if you step out of the community. So always make sure that you know also the language of the audience. Okay, let's play another big exercise. So now we play one of my favorites, actually. It's called Half-Life. So this is a bit about distilling again. So we start with making pairs again. So you might just stick in the pairs you just did. Let's do 2 minutes. So each of you gets 2 minutes to explain to the other person what they're working on. So maybe you know each other from work already, but just do a 2-minute summary of what are you working on currently, just for your colleague. You don't have to pretend to be anyone. Just everyone gets 2 minutes to explain to the other. And it goes a bit on, so I don't spoil it yet, but I give you a tip: please pay attention. Right? Don't just pretend to listen for 2 minutes and think, what am I going to do in my 2 minutes? But really listen to the other person, right? So yeah, let's get started. So 2 minutes again, and then after 2 minutes we switch sides.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes pause. Yeah. You 30 seconds left for the first person. Okay, that was 2 minutes for the first person. Now switch sides. Now the other person explains themselves for 2 minutes. Yeah. Good at distilling already. You already know what's in.
Written a lot of proposals.
You 1 more minute left for the second person. Okay, that was 2 minutes. So I hope you all paid attention because now I throw you the curveball a bit. So now we switch sides again. Sorry. And now you explain back to the other person. So now you listen to the other person for 2 minutes, and now you get 1 minute to explain back to the person what you think you understood they are doing. Okay? So now we see how good you listen and how good the other person explained. But now we go from 3 minutes or 2 minutes down to 1 minute. Okay, so you have half the time to explain back to the person. We have to make some sacrifices. We have to maybe get rid of some details. And you can see what details the other person thought was important and what details the other person is dropping. So You might get a bit of this distilling back and forth. Okay, so 1 minute for person B to explain back to person B, and then we switch for another minute. Okay. 5 seconds. Okay, now we have 1 minute the other way around, right? So now 1 minute for person A to explain back to person B what they're doing.
I would say no.
15 seconds left for the second person. Okay, that was that part. So now we have a very short feedback. So anyone feels completely misunderstood? So anyone like, oh no, I'm using 4 vectors and not just 3, or I'm looking at galaxies, not at planetary nebula. So everything is decently well. Okay. So now we come to the last round of this. So now we go down to 30 seconds. So from 2 minutes to 1 minute to 30 seconds. And now I want you to explain the other person to the whole group. We go through this, and then you explain what you learned about this. So introduce, this is X. I just learned that they are working on this, and then you get 30 seconds to explain this. Okay. So maybe we start here in the front. You want to start, Manu? Explain us for 30 seconds.
Yeah. He's working with binary stars and modeling the outcome of observations on X-rays.
Where is it in 30 seconds? Okay, great.
And this is Madhu, who is a postdoc and is trying to use machine learning in order to help in detecting exoplanets by removing the starlight.
That was also very quick. 10 seconds. Great. You're even faster than the 30 seconds. You were just observing.
Yeah.
He's an observer. He observed. Okay, great.
We actually work together in the same person, so we know what we thought. So we talked about
Okay, great. Yeah, but explain to us. Then explain in 30 seconds to us what you both said.
what we work on.
30 seconds.
So yeah, we work in developing magnetic sensors for the LISA mission. Feature ESA mission used to measure gravitational waves.
Nice. And then you two.
Okay, so he tries to characterize exoplanets orbiting stars similar to the Sun and exoplanets similar to the Earth, using 3 different instruments from 3 different missions called Plato, Ariel, and Parmenas, using the radial velocity.
2 of them don't even exist yet. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
He's working on Earth observation. They use GPS, positional GPS signals to study precipitation and presentation files because I think prove the focus.
Great, thanks. And you too.
So he's Daniel, he's doing his PhD in biology astrophysics, and he's studying pulsars, basically the behavior of charged particles in the kinetics of pulsars. And he does some simulations and see how the dynamics of the kinetics of pulsars appear, and then compares them with the X-ray and gamma observations.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so that is working on interplanetary magnets through radio observations. She studied with she takes the observation with several radio telescopes and tries to have the radio detection from planets, from massive planets, in order to get some knowledge of the magnetic field of these.
Yes, thanks. And you too in the back.
It works on the energy physics and try to prove the current theory and to observe the high energy rings and analyze them.
Great, thanks. And the other way around.
In the remote city, and right now in many laboratories to predict the echo and the soil voltage. But the main problem in this project is because the data is maybe the data they can use is small. So I think maybe if we have more useful data, then in this field, we can get more improvements in this project.
Great, thanks. 35 seconds. That's good. Oh, great. And then you too.
Well, she's Claudia. She's working on supernova technique. Actually, supernova that comes from explosion of massive stars. And said also that this supernova like rock stars, because the massive stars evolve like very fast and die fast. So it's like rock stars. And she's doing observations and also the data reduction. And because
Perfect. Do the second. Really good.
Okay, so Maria is working the next step in engineering. She was more in optical, and she wants to see a correlation between different parameters with galaxy and environment. And she's exploring different diagnostics to find new phenomena.
Great. Perfect. And then you two in the back.
Yes. Well, very easy. We are working in the same team. So 3 minutes are really 15 years.
Okay. So 15 years and 10 seconds.
We work in the cosmology, like observation and cosmology, different fields.
So what's the question you want to answer? How did it all start? Cool, great, thanks. So that was our distilling exercise. I think I still probably have get through this. Let's go to the proposal in a nutshell. So I want to do 10 minutes again, at least scratch a bit the surface of proposal writing. So first of all, proposal writing is important, right? Because everyone needs money. If you want to have a salary, especially in astronomy, if you want to observe, proposing is even more important. On top of getting your salary, it's also part of the job to just get your observation time. And as an early career scientist, these individual fellowships also give you the freedom to research what you really want. Right? So it's not just not just a contract postdoc, but you have a fellowship and can really research. And coming back to the stuff we talked before, build your own brand. So this is why it's important to to start working on proposals as early as you can in your career. But allow time for good proposals, right? So good proposals are timely in terms of, they happen at the same time, at the right time. If you propose something to do with Spitzer right now, probably would be too late. And if you propose to do something with, the LIFE telescope, it might be a bit too early because it still takes 20 years. So also in this perspective, proposals are timely. But also timing in the sense of identify the right schemes, check if you're eligible for the program or not. What are the deadlines? Does it happen twice a year? Is the running call? Allow ideas to mature. So don't just try to figure something out 4 weeks before the deadline, but maybe, have a folder on a computer where you drop ideas and, work on them. Or maybe don't look at them for a year, go back to it, add a little bit of it. So some ideas might take 5 years to develop into a full proposal. And then also, especially in our fields, check these mission timetables. So really try to tie and this is a bit of an example, a bit of an advantage in our community, which other fields might not have, that a lot of our things are just driven by missions, right? When missions are flying, and if you tie yourself to a mission, as I just mentioned, it's maybe too late to work on Spitzer, and maybe a bit too early to work on Live, but maybe it's a great time to be involved in Ariel and Plato because they will be flying in 10 years. So really check these mission timetables and then apply your current research to stuff that is there or will happen soon. Right now would probably be a great time to combine HST and James Webb data, for example, right? Which probably a couple of you are already doing. So really tie it to the mission timetables, and then scan the terrain. So really check your field. Where is your field going as a whole? What are the big questions that you want to answer? So, for example, in our field, we want to find life eventually, or at least build instruments good enough to detect life if it's there on other planets. And then think about how you can uniquely contribute, right? In order to answer this big question of life, it might be important to think about the geology of lava worlds, or to check if there's some climate cycles in eccentric planets, right? So there's a lot of things that you have to think about how you can uniquely contribute to this big question. And this is how you usually, for this unique piece of the puzzle, this is what you usually write a proposal about. Identify these opportunities, maybe even think about the future. So, maybe you do a travel grant now, and then you do a, first fellowship then, and then you apply for Marie Curie, and then you apply for an ECR. So identify the opportunities and line them up. And really try to get as much feedback as possible from colleagues. So, of course, don't go to the colleagues that let's steal ideas, but from the ones that you can trust, go to them, bounce some ideas, get some feedback, get them maybe also to share their ideas with you, that you can learn from each other. So this is also important in this sense. Get involved early. So this is especially for the younger folks, maybe the most important tip. So really try to start, even if you're an undergrad or if you're early career grad student, really even start for the small parts. It gets you a bit of an experience. If you want by the one pager to get a travel grant, it also doesn't take much of your time. It also changes a bit of your attitude towards proposal if you start early, and then maybe win some of these smaller pots at least. And then if you have the chance, also review proposals yourself. So oftentimes funding agencies ask for people to help. Maybe also as early career, you might not be a reviewer, but you could work as some sort of helper in these panels, and you can also read it. If your advisor writes out a new position for a postdoc, ask them if you could help reviewing these proposals, just so that you get an idea. Because really being on the other side, at least for myself, it helped me a lot to get my proposals better. Being on the other side, being in the mindset of a reviewer, because they have a completely different mindset. They don't want your proposal to win. As a reviewer, you want to find as soon as possible a reason to reject the proposal, because you get 10 proposals to read, you can only accept one. So you read the proposal with the mindset of why can I stop reading this, right? And once you've been in this mindset, you start writing a proposal for people in that mindset. So this is why having the chance to review proposals yourself really helps you to write better proposals yourself. Think a bit about the risk and reward. There's usually different funding opportunities for different things. So if something is low risk, low reward, it might be low hanging fruit. If it's high reward, low risk, it's a unicorn. That usually doesn't happen. But then for other things, there are different funding opportunities, right? So low hanging fruit is maybe something for a 6 month short program. And if it's high risk, high reward, it might more be an ERC or something like this. So different. Sometimes they even explicitly ask for risk. So I have colleagues who got an ERC rejected because it was not risky enough. Right? So sometimes this could also be a problem to have things risky enough. And then what also people sometimes think, at least early on, is that it's a good idea to not talk about the risks in your proposal. But I think this is a mistake. If you try to think, oh yeah, there's a couple of things how my experiment could go wrong, I better don't mention them in my proposal, The reviewers are smart. They will find out that. And if you don't talk about the risks, it makes your proposal actually stronger. If you say, okay, I'm aware there's a couple of risks, I might not get my data, there might be an asteroid hitting my lab, whatever risk there might be. But if you can show in your proposal that you reduce it, that you have redundancies built in, that you can transfer it, that you can maybe just accept it or avoid it, it makes the proposal much stronger. If you know, okay, yeah, there is a risk, but here are my steps I can take if this risk really happens. So this actually makes a proposal much stronger if you have this section where you talk about risks and what you would do to avoid them or live with them if they happen. What's also important for writing a proposal, there's also this kind of a pyramid involved, right? So you always have some sort of core skills, experience, stuff that you learn in your PhD, stuff that you wrote in your first paper, and then you want to add something to it, right? A new tool, a new instrument, a new data set, trying out, machine learning on the problem, or modeling a huge grid of new models. So there's always this base of knowledge that exists, and then this growth that you add on top of it in the work that you want on a proposal. And this has to be in balance, right? So if you have like all this body of work and then you just want to add a tiny little bit to it, it's probably not a good proposal. And if you have almost no skills, but propose this huge, big new idea, then it's also not a good proposal. So a good proposal has always a good balance between this existing base, this knowledge, expertise that you have, and that additional growth that you add to it. And in this context, not a good idea are social security proposals. This is like, oh yeah, I've been doing great things for 3 years, just give me this fellowship, and I promise you there's more happening, right? This is what I call a social security proposal. Happens, but it's usually not really good. The fishing expedition, right? Just that you point the telescope there, you're gonna find something. Works for deep field, but not usually proposing an observing proposal. The big toy hammer proposal, right? I want to build this super big neural network to fit a line through 2 points. That usually also doesn't work. Or the vague proposal, right? It's like, yeah, we do something, we add this code with that code, and then something comes out, but it's not really clear what's happening. It's a bit like a fishing expedition. So those are not good ideas for proposals. You have to have deliverables and return on investment to really make sure what are the work packages you have, relate them to what you deliver for the community. You might build a new data set, you might build a new tool, a new method, and make sure there's a gift for everyone. So each reviewer, the pen information folks get something out of it, the instrumentalists get something out of it. In the best case, you have something for everyone. And this is maybe the best take-home message here. Every proposal needs 3 figures. So every proposal needs a beautiful butterfly, a family portrait, and a before and after. And I explain you what I mean with that. So there needs to be this one, nice and catchy if possible. And it doesn't necessarily have to figure, but something, it could also be like a table or just a nice piece of text could be, but something in the beginning that just catches the imagination of the reviewer, right? Like a nice picture, like something that really gets, the energy of the proposal. Then you need a family portrait, right? The state of the art. This is how things are looking in our field. Try to, cite all the important people. They might be reading the proposal. If they don't see their own name on it, they're not going to accept your proposal. So make sure the whole family is mentioned and no one feels left out. And that this also shows, the state of the art, right? This family portrait shows, okay, this is how it's looking right now. I know I did my homework. I read all these papers. I know that the field is right now. And then with the before and after, you basically is, this is what we have now. And this is what you get if you fund it, right? This is also, again, could be a table, could be, one of the chart with boxes or something, but this information obviously should be in your proposal, right? This is what the state of the art is, and this is what you get if you pay me. So that's what I mean by these 3 figures that you need in a proposal. There's some cheat sheets that I can share with you if you're interested. So, you can use them to review your own proposals. Go through it. Yeah, I think this is perfect timing at 12. We are through it. So just 7 things in the end for being a good network in academia. Act like a host. So if you are at a conference and you're standing in front of your postdoc, act as if you organized the thing, and if that's a piece of art in your living room. Also act like a host if you're standing in a group at a conference and two people meet that you know and you don't know if they know each other, introduce them. That's what a host, that's what you would do as a host of your own party, you don't know. But this means networking doesn't necessarily mean that you connect yourself. It sometimes just means you connect to other people, right? So this is also what we mean with acting like a host. Listen to others with the intent of how can I help, right? Don't listen and just want to tell them about my nature paper, let's find for the right opportunity, right? But no, listen to what is their problem, what might be skills, expertise that you can help them with their work. This is what good networking is about. Give generously. So usually if someone asks you for code or your data set, or you read the paper or give some feedback, give generously, but also ask for what you want. So if other people listen to you with the intent, how can I help? You better explicitly tell them how they can help. That makes it easier in both directions. So if you want some data set, if you want some references, ask explicitly in your talk. That makes it easier for others to help you if they listen like this. End conversations graciously, don't burn bridges, follow through. This is also maybe important. So if you meet someone new at a conference, you get their business card or you talk at their poster, write them a mail after the conference. Hey, it was great meeting you. Let's keep in touch. And then if you see half a year later they publish something on archive, follow through, right? Or you can, that's so great. Just that's how you keep connections over time. It doesn't necessarily have to be immediately return on investment or something, but this is how you keep connections just by following through. And then we didn't take anything from this, and this is coming back to this game plan. We at the beginning have a clear goal for every meeting that you organize, every event that you go, every conference. That makes it much easier for you, but also for the others. We talked about the Zoom call. If the organizer of the Zoom call has clear goals, you're done after 20 minutes and don't have to stick in the room for an hour, right? So this is maybe if you don't take anything from the workroom, from this workshop, try to have this clear goal. Okay, and that was it. So that was a really sprint. So that was 3 workshops in 1 hour, but yeah, I'm happy to come back at some point and do like full workshops if you're interested, and maybe you learned a bit, can take some of this and have good luck with your proposals maybe, and yeah, then I might see you this afternoon for my science talk. Thanks. And yes, I said, please I'll be around today and tomorrow. Or if there are any immediate questions. Anything on the Zoom? Can I stop sharing?
Perhaps